media doesn't need to lie to you. That's the part nobody wants to admit. They don't have to fabricate stories, invent fake quotes, or doctor photographs. They have something far more powerful, far more insidious, and far more effective than any lie ever could be. They have the power to decide what you never see at all. What you don't know can't make you angry. That's not a flaw in the system. That is the system. Think about it. Every day, thousands of events happen around the world. Wars escalate. Governments sign secret deals. Corporations poison water supplies. And out of all of that, someone somewhere decides which 5 stories make it to your screen. Selection is control, not lying. Selecting. And selection is the most dangerous form of manipulation ever invented because you can't fight what you don't know exists. As Noam Chomsky once warned us, the smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable opinion. Today, we're going to expose exactly how that spectrum is constructed, who builds its walls, and why what they leave out matters infinitely more than what they put in. The illusion of choice. You wake up, you check your phone, you scroll through 3, maybe 4 news apps, you feel informed, you feel like you've seen every angle, but here's what's actually happening. 6 corporations control 90% of what Americans see, read, and hear. 6, not 60, not 600. 6. Comcast, Disney, Warner Bros. Discovery, Paramount, Fox, and Sony. That's the entire menu. Freedom of the press is guaranteed only to those who own one. And those 6 companies don't compete on truth. They compete on attention. They compete on engagement. They compete on keeping you watching, clicking, scrolling, reacting. Your attention is the product being sold. You think you're choosing between different perspectives. You're choosing between different packaging of the same perspective. Like walking into a grocery store with 1,000 products on the shelves, only to realize they're all made by the same 3 companies. The labels are different. The ingredients are identical. Same owners, same story. And this isn't conspiracy. This is public record. You can look up the ownership structures yourself. But here's the real question, the one that should keep you up at night. If the same people own the outlets, who decides what gets covered? And more importantly, who decides what doesn't? The framing weapon. Let me show you something that will change how you watch the news forever. Imagine a protest. 1,000 people in the streets. Now, a photographer can take 2 completely different pictures of the same event. One zoomed in on a man throwing a bottle. Headline reads, "Violent mob clashes with police." Another zoomed out showing families, elderly people, children holding signs. Headline reads, "Citizens March for Rights." Same event, same moment, completely different realities. The frame decides the truth. This is framing, and it's not lying. Every single word in both headlines could be factually accurate. But the frame, the angle, the emphasis, the adjective, that's where the real manipulation lies. They don't change what happened, they change what it means. As the legendary journalist Walter Lippmann wrote nearly 100 years ago, we do not first see and then define. We define first and then see. The media gives you the definition before you ever see the event. Frame controls meaning. They don't tell you what to think, they tell you what to think about. And that distinction, that tiny, almost invisible distinction, is worth more than any lie they could ever tell. But framing is only half the weapon. What comes next is even more dangerous. The omission game. If I told you that a news channel covered a bombing in one country for 72 straight hours, but didn't mention a larger bombing in another country for even 72 seconds, would you call that lying? Technically, no. Everything they reported about the first bombing was true. But what they didn't report about the second one, that silence, that deliberate omission, shaped your understanding of the world more profoundly than any fabricated story ever could. Omission. This is the omission game, and it's the media's most powerful tool. You can't be outraged about something you never heard of. You can't protest a war you don't know is happening. You can't question a policy nobody told you about. If this pattern is starting to disturb you as much as it should, hit like and subscribe, because we're just getting started. What I'm about to reveal cuts even deeper. The legendary playwright Harold Pinter put it best in his Nobel Prize acceptance speech. It never happened. Nothing ever happened. Even while it was happening, it wasn't happening. That's not poetry. That's a description of how modern media works. Silence is strategy. Events cease to exist when cameras choose not to point at them. And the scariest part, you'll never know what you missed. You'll go to bed tonight thinking you understand the world, never suspecting that the most important story of the day was the one nobody showed you. And this brings us to the mechanism that makes it all possible. Manufacturing context. Here's a technique so subtle that even the smartest people fall for it every single day. You see a statistic on screen. Crime is up 20%. That's a fact. It's verifiable. It's not a lie. But what they didn't tell you is that crime is up 20% compared to last year, which was the lowest crime year in 3 decades. So crime is actually near historic lows. The number is real. The context is missing. And without context, facts become weapons. This is manufactured context. Take a number, strip it of its history, isolate it from its surroundings, and present it like it means something terrifying. Works every time. Immigration numbers, always presented as a crisis, never compared to historical waves that built the very nation reporting on them. Government spending, always shocking, never adjusted for inflation or population growth. A fact without context is a lie wearing a suit. As Mark Twain famously observed, there are lies, damned lies, and statistics. Context is everything. The media knows that you won't research the context. They're counting on it. They're betting that the number alone will trigger your emotion before your brain has time to ask, compared to what? And emotions, well, emotions are the real currency here. Which brings us to something even more troubling. The emotion machine. Your brain has a flaw. A glitch in the operating system that evolution never patched. When you feel strong emotion, your critical thinking shuts down, not reduces, shuts down. Fear overrides logic every single time. And the media knows this better than your therapist does. Neuroscience has proven it. When the amygdala fires, when fear or outrage takes over, the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational analysis, literally goes offline. You become reactive instead of reflective. And that's exactly where they want you. Think about the language. It's never a disagreement. It's a clash. It's never a discussion. It's a battle. It's never a policy change. It's a crisis. Fear sells always. Every word is engineered to bypass your thinking and hijack your feeling. As the philosopher Bertrand Russell warned decades ago, neither a man nor a crowd, nor a nation can be trusted to act humanely under the influence of a great fear. They don't inform you, they activate you. An informed citizen asks questions. An activated citizen shares headlines. And sharing headlines is far more profitable than answering questions. But it gets worse. Because this emotional manipulation doesn't just affect how you see the news. It affects how you see each other. Divide and profit. Here's the business model nobody wants you to understand. Conflict is content. Division is engagement. Outrage is revenue. Profit. The more divided you are from your neighbor, the more you watch. The more you watch, the more ads they sell. The more ads they sell, the more they need you divided. It's a machine that feeds on fracture. Left versus right. Young versus old. Urban versus rural. Every possible line of division is a potential revenue stream. 1. Division creates engagement. 2. Engagement creates ad revenue. 3. Revenue demands more division. 4. The cycle never ends. And here's what's truly insidious. The people on opposite sides of these manufactured battles have more in common with each other than with the people manufacturing the battle. A factory worker in Ohio and a factory worker in Michigan don't disagree about whether they should be able to afford health care. But on television, they are enemies. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Division is profitable. Different era, same principle. Keep them fighting each other so they never look up. And speaking of looking up, there's a layer to this that most people never even consider. The algorithm cage. Imagine a prison where the walls are invisible, the bars don't exist, and the prisoners don't know they're locked up. That's your social media feed. The algorithm builds a reality just for you. In the old days, at least everyone watched the same news. You might disagree about what it meant, but you were arguing about the same facts. Today, you and your neighbor can live in completely different factual universes. The algorithm studies what you click, what you linger on, what makes you angry, what makes you share. Then it feeds you more of exactly that, not because it's true, because it's engaging. Your feed is not a window to the world, it's a mirror. The former president of Facebook, Sean Parker, admitted this publicly. He said the platform was designed to exploit a vulnerability in human psychology. His words, not mine. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. Designed to addict. And now multiply this by 3 billion users worldwide. 3 billion people, each in their own personalized information bubble, each convinced they see the full picture. Each absolutely certain that anyone who disagrees must be either stupid or evil. Because in their feed, the evidence is overwhelming. But this digital cage connects to something much older. A pattern that's been running for centuries. The consent factory. In 1988, Noam Chomsky and Edward Herman published a book that should have changed everything. It was called Manufacturing Consent, and it laid out, with surgical precision, the 5 filters through which all news passes before it reaches you. Ownership, advertising, sourcing, flag, and ideology. 5 filters between you and the truth. Think of it as an assembly line. Raw information enters on one end. By the time it exits the other end, packaged neatly for your consumption, it has been shaped, trimmed, edited, and sanitized to serve interests that have nothing to do with keeping you informed. The sourcing filter alone is devastating. Most major news outlets rely on government officials and corporate PR departments as their primary sources. They call it access journalism. The sources shape the story before the journalist writes a word. Access equals obedience. If a journalist pushes too hard, they lose access. If they lose access, they lose stories. If they lose stories, they lose their career. So they learn very quickly which questions are acceptable and which questions are career-ending. As George Orwell wrote with terrifying prescience, journalism is printing what someone else does not want printed. Everything else is public relations. Most of what you consume is public relations wearing a journalist's costume. But this system doesn't run on autopilot. There are specific people who benefit from it. Who really benefits? Follow the money. It's the oldest rule in understanding power, and it has never failed. Follow IT. Who owns the media companies? Shareholders. Who are the biggest shareholders? Investment firms. BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. The same firms that own significant stakes in defense contractors, pharmaceutical companies, oil corporations, and big tech. Now ask yourself this. When a news network owned by shareholders who also own defense stocks covers a war, what incentive do they have to advocate for peace? When a channel funded by pharmaceutical advertising covers health policy, what stories get buried? When a network whose parent company profits from oil covers climate change, what perspective dominates? Money talks, truth walks. The news is not about what happened, it's about who paid. This isn't about left or right. This isn't about liberal or conservative. Those categories are themselves part of the distraction. This is about money. This is about power. This is about a system where the people informing you about the world have a financial interest in keeping you confused about it. As the investigative journalist Upton Sinclair once put it, it is difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends upon his not understanding it. And that brings us to the most important question of all, the way out. So what do? How do you navigate a world where the truth isn't hidden behind a lie, but buried under an avalanche of carefully curated half-truths? The first step is admitting you've been curated, not deceived, not lied to, curated. Your reality has been edited by people who don't know you, don't care about you, and profit from your ignorance. Once you accept that, everything changes. Start reading sources from other countries, not because foreign media is honest, but because their biases are different. Where American media has blind spots, European media can see. Where European media has blind spots, Asian or Middle Eastern sources might illuminate. 1. Read foreign sources for different blind spots. 2. Ask who benefits from every story. 3. Notice what's not being covered. 4. Check original sources, not interpretations. 5. Discuss with people who disagree with you. When you see a story that triggers strong emotion, pause. That's the moment your critical thinking wants to shut down. That's the moment you need it most. Ask who benefits from you feeling this way. Ask what's being left out. Ask what question the story doesn't want you to ask. Question everything always. As the Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote 2,000 years ago, in words that could have been written today, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. The media isn't lying to you. It's something far worse. It's deciding what reality looks like before you ever open your eyes. Here's what I need you to understand. The media isn't your enemy. It's not your friend either. It's a machine. A machine built to generate attention and convert it into profit. And like any machine, it doesn't care about you. It cares about what you click, what you share, what makes you angry enough to stay watching. Attention is currency. The lie would be easier to fight. You could fact-check a lie. You could disprove it. You could point to it and say, that's false. But how do you fight a story that's technically true but missing 90% of its context? How do you fight silence? How do you fight the stories that were never told? You fight it by becoming ungovernable in the only way that matters, by thinking for yourself. An informed mind cannot be manipulated, not thinking what the left tells you to think, not thinking what the right tells you to think, thinking, actually thinking, questioning your own assumptions, reading with your brain instead of your emotions, seeking out the uncomfortable truth instead of the comfortable narrative. As Aldous Huxley prophesied, the perfect dictatorship would have the appearance of a democracy, but would basically be a prison without walls. The walls are invisible, but now you can see them. And once you see them, they can never contain you again. If you made it this far, comment curated reality to prove you're among the few who actually question what they consume. Every government lies. Every corporation lies. Every institution lies. The question is, what are they lying about? And what are they not telling you at all? The truth is out there. You just have to look past the frame. Subscribe if you want to keep seeing what they don't show you.